Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today we are talking about eliminating the 2-hit roll.
Right.
I said that funny because I was reading it upside down. Sorry. And,
Yes. And
what does that mean?
what does that even mean? That's crazy talk, isn't it?
Well, from what I'm reading, yes.
Crazy talk. So almost from its incursion, RPGs have used the to-hit roll. You actually roll dice to see if your character hits. And depending on which history you believe, it supposedly comes from wargaming, where you would use it to determine which unit hit another unit. Because in wargaming, you throw a lot of dice.
You say depending on which history you believe, D&D did come out of people that played war games all the time.
There's an alternate idea that aliens came down and gave the sacred D20 to every guy. No, I'm just kidding. No, but for the most part, yes, that is true. Most of the people who played the first incarnations of RPGs were former wargamers or had quite a bit of experience in wargaming. So it's been there. A lot of almost every game uses the A to hit roll, no matter what kind of rule system you use, from percentiles to dice pools to the old venerable D20. And that seems like something that you would need, right?
I was going to say a necessity.
A necessity. That's one word to describe all the words I used. But yes, it's a necessity to figure out when you do an action, especially something like combat in any of its incarnations, that you need to roll to hit just to see if your attack makes contact, is successful.
I'm sorry, I was thinking about a bridge for a second.
A bridge too far.
Yes. I was thinking that it's not only combat where you have a roll to hit, right? It's really, roll to hit, yes.
Yes.
But a roll to
succeed
at
yes.
the action that you're taking. It doesn't necessarily have to be combat. I was thinking about bridges because I was thinking about Bay's game where we were playing Star Wars and Mike and Saul and I and Sip always have a problem with bridges.
I don't. I think because
It's me. Is it just me?
No. I think it's the group. I wasn't too suspicious of it, and I didn't give in to the power of suspicion, and therefore, when I made my roll, I was successful. But other people, like the rest of the group, because I was
rolling dice that didn't even have numbers on them, Saul. I didn't have any. He said, roll to see if you go across the bridge, if you make it across the bridge without a problem. So I hit the roll button on roll 20. And a bunch of dice came up that I didn't even know what the meanings of were, because it was the Star Wars dice.
Oh, that's right. We're playing Star Wars, not Star Trek.
So I had to literally say, did I make it? Because I couldn't tell. Well, I was still learning what the dice meant.
That's true. And the app does tell you, the Roll20 app, I think we're using Roll20.
We were.
So the Roll20 app does tell you, but it also gives you a bunch of
It doesn't, well, it sort of tells you.
No, it literally tells you. It literally says, no successes.
No, it didn't. Mine didn't. No, it didn't. It just gave you the little symbols.
Oh, yeah.
And after we played the game for a while, I figured out that the symbols that I was rolling were the complications or whatever. But so it's not only combat that you have to roll dice to succeed at what you want to do.
Okay,
right?
so this is specifically combat, though. They're not we're not talking about eliminating skill rolls, or whether you succeed in those kind of endeavors. In the games we're talking about specifically games that only eliminated to hit roll. And why eliminate to hit rolls, right? Let's bust that one out.
Okay.
So
why would you eliminate it to hit roll?
Well, to me, the pessimist in me says that the publisher just wants to stand out from all the other role-playing games out there, especially D&D 5th edition, which in its current at the current time, even though whatever they're calling the next edition, or whatever it's called, I forget what it was. I think 5th edition was supposed to be called Next, but they nixed the next idea. Anyway, everybody's calling it 6th edition because
that's what gamers do.
That's what gamers do, and pretty much right. I don't know. I honestly, guys, I haven't seen the new rules, even though they've already published the player's handbook, I think, or not published it. They put the PDF out, and you can buy the PDF, and people have been talked about it. And there was a big hullabaloo about that, but we're chat to get into that.
Anyway, I forgot where we were. Oh, you wanted them to
Why
they
to
want
eliminate
to separate
themselves
from D&D.
From D&D. And what a better way to say, we do not have to hit rolls.
That's interesting, but the articles I read on this particular subject sounded more like, I don't like it when I miss because then I lose my action.
Okay, so
I'm just telling you, that's what it sounded like.
Yeah, exactly. I'm talking about why eliminate the rolls. My pessimist in me tells me publishers just want to stand out. If you stand out, you can sell your product and therefore make money. Now, I'm a little bit pessimistic, so that kind of incurs into my thought pattern every once in a while, that idea. But they do give you reasons why they feel that the to hit, specifically the to hit roll, needs to be eliminated. And I'm not certain what rules, but the one that's called, what is it called? MCDM or something like that. It's the new one by that guy
the guy with the beard.
The guy with the beard on.
I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but we watched him on YouTube.
He's very famous. I think has had very successful Kickstarter campaigns.
Matt something Colville.
No, it's not Matt.
No.
Colville is his last name. Oh, maybe it is Matt Colville. Yeah, you're right. There you go.
It is the name that popped.
So him and his party, his group of people are coming out with a new.
I think it already came out.
No.
Oh, it's only been Kickstarted.
Yeah, they kickstarted it. A new RPG, and it's been dubbed MCCDM. I'm sorry for not looking that up right now, but anyway, and they've eliminated to hit rolls, and one of the reasons they give is that combat takes a long time. So by eliminating to hit rolls, you're going to reduce the amount of combat. Now, they do other things to reduce the amount of combat, but this is one thing in the litany of things that they've done to eliminate combat being so, not eliminate, but shorten the amount of time combat takes. So in D&D 5th edition, a big combat will take an hour.
Oh, maybe just 30 minutes. It depends on how quickly you tell people to go. It depends on who's running it, who the general is at the table.
And how, I guess it also depends on the players, right? If they really know what they want to do, and if they're ready for that, it's your turn kind of thing, and they do it immediately or they do it quickly. Some players tend to hem and haw, like, well, I could do this, and that stuff will slow down.
That's when you move along to the next person and tell them we'll come back to you in a minute. So
that's one idea that they put out.
But
do you want to talk about that one?
I do, because to make it go faster. Yeah. Is that what the idea is?
Combat doesn't take as long. I don't know if that means the same as what you're saying.
Well, wouldn't it be kind of less exciting if you didn't know? In real combat, you might not hit the person.
Okay, yeah. But we're talking about just the idea of reducing the amount of time that combat takes at the game table.
But it would make it more boring.
Okay. Let's continue. Let's keep talking about why people, because you said boring, and I think that's what the creators of this the ideas that behind this. There's another game called Stormlight.
Okay.
That is also eliminating
the roll to hit.
But anyway, let's continue. The number 2 thing that I wrote down was that missing is boring.
I will posit that if that is true, you may not be playing the game correctly.
Okay, so they said that
if you roll to hit and you don't hit, you're missing your turn, and then you don't get your action.
Right. It's like
basically it's to roll to see if you get to play an action, which to me is silly, because if you're rolling to hit and you don't make it, that doesn't mean you can't explain what's going on or tell people what you did. Usually in our games we say what we do and then roll the dice.
Right, to see how that, if it's successful or not. I agree. I'm not saying I don't disagree with you, but according to the people who are making these kind of changes, they said in their in their games, they say they don't call it the D20 system. They call it the D. See if your do anything system. And
I think it stems from the fact that a lot of players will have their phones out at the table, or they're not engaged in the current situation that everybody is playing,
Okay.
right? So they're not really paying attention because I'm not going to do a roll for another 5 minutes because we're in combat, which I've heard. Every once in a while, I've seen people with their phones out, but mostly it's because something went off on it or something like a ding, like a notification or something.
So is the phone is a symptom of what them being bored?
That's what I think that they're getting at, is that their players aren't engaged
All the time.
right. Which it did. So then I'm once again, maybe you should say, put your phone away. Let's play this out, or maybe have people role play it if they don't want to roll. I mean, if they're bored. I don't know.
Well, that's what these people said, and I don't know if I agree with them or not. I think, okay, most people who have listened to me know that I'm over 50, over 55 now, which is wow. But
Shocking.
It is shocking. But what is interesting is that what these people who are creating these games are at least 20 years younger than me. That's like a whole generation.
I think they're not quite that younger, much younger, but
Well,
okay.
17 years younger. Let's say they're 40.
Okay.
Right? And I think maybe it's a generational thing, and I think they're making games for younger people because that's the feedback they get. I don't know what the deal is, but it seems like this new generation of gamers are more easily bored or whatever. At least with things like this, when people make statements like, well, they're bored because they miss and stuff like that, I think it's because they have a shorter attention span. That whole idea of kids growing up with a phone in their hand, which you were saying, is like they're not used to not doing something or having something in hand or people doing stuff. So this is a reaction to that
mindset,
and therefore let's eliminate that because they feel it's boring.
Yeah, I'm not going to buy that one. I'm sorry, because I've been at tables where if I don't hit something, the GM says, well, tell me what happens because you missed. What happened to the bullet, or what did you hit with your sword if you didn't hit the person you were swinging at?
Well, I mean, there is that, and I think the idea that somebody's bored because they're not doing something in the action
because they didn't get a turn, but everybody else has a turn, right?
Well, not only that, but what about when they're not doing something in non-combat situations?
Then
right?
that it's going to be how you
Then
cannot
they're gonna whip out their phone every time.
You can't keep 5 or 4 or 5 people engaged if they don't want to be there,
or at the same time,
at the same moment, right?
Yeah, because so that kind of happened, and I ran a game over Veterans Day here in the United States at a con, and at one point these two young men were playing with me, playing the game. There was 5 players, and then what happened was at one point they split the party, right? So when they split the party, the action went to the 3 other players. The 2 guys stayed. I forget where they were doing together. But when that happened, they both whipped out their phones right away, right? And they were like, whatever. I didn't really notice them because my attention was to a certain part of the table. And then when I went back to them, I'm like, okay, it's your turn. And then they put them away real quick. I thought it was real strange that.
Well, they had a minute, so they checked their phones.
Yeah.
I might have done the same thing.
Yeah, we're gonna that incurs into the whole idea of table manners and table rules when you go to a convention. And there's been that talk about
and when you split
phones
when you split the party, sometimes it's I don't know. At our tables, usually people are like watching to see what happens before it's their turn, before the GM comes back to their side or whatever. There are 2 people. Because it's usually important to know what's going on over there, even though you're not there and you're not really supposed to know what's going on.
Yeah, maybe they should tell them, oh, go ahead and leave the room.
Oh, see, that would be horrible.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was a very strange aside, but missing is boring is what one creator said, and they don't want their people to be bored. And then third, that was me, eliminates the feeling of uselessness or not effective, right? You were talking about Steve's character, and I don't remember what game. I think it was Shadowrun, but I don't remember, where he rolled like 2 or 3 times.
I think it was Shadowrun too.
And he missed and missed and missed, and he said, "Well, I'm useless. I'm gonna do something else."
And this is what, and when he said that, because I usually give it 2 rolls of doing the same thing. If I miss twice, then I change my tactics and do something else. Right, because you figure you're swinging this sword, something's off with your game because you've missed the guy twice. So, and you're just like, it's like you're standing there going, everybody else is hitting people, and here I am. I need to change up what I'm doing because I'm not contributing to taking these people down, whatever they are.
So I think I've talked about this one time. My brother took me to this Monterey gaming club, and literally it was just us going room to room and standing in the doorway, going back and forth, seeing if I hit, seeing how much damage I did, and then when I got knocked down out of the action, they would grab my body, pull me back, and fill in that spot with somebody else. Very mechanical way of doing things, and also very boring.
Well, because you didn't get to actually tell anybody what you were going to do other than the caller. Or actually, he usually told you what.
No, well, the caller would tell the ref, and then if there was something different you wanted to do, he would tell him.
And if you don't know what that means, you're going to need to ask somebody who's over 50.
Or read the history of D&D or something like that. There's quite a few of them out there. And I think that is true, right? If you miss a lot, then you're going to be bored, or you're going to, not bored, I'm sorry, you're going to feel you're ineffective or useless.
Was a seat, but then you need to change what you're doing, do something different, right? It's the same way in life, right? You do something a couple times and it doesn't work, you're going to figure out how to do it a different way.
Right. And we talked about this yesterday before when we were talking about this episode. And I said, well, there's things you can do to mitigate that kind of a problem, right? There's moving, there's trying to get a different vantage point, and depending on your rules that you're using, sometimes you get a bonus for that, or switch weapons, or do something else, right? That, like you said, find something else to do, or figure something out. Whether it's just something to do in the rules that's to give you a bonus, or whether it's for you as a player to change it up a bit and maybe, get your bearings again or get your mojo back, however you want to look at it, and be able to, by changing something, change your luck on the dice, right? Because a lot of people are very, not suspicious, superstitious, and they believe like if they change something about what they're doing, instead of doing the same thing over and over again, they can affect change. And sometimes if you change something, like change your weapon or whatever, then those dice, or change dice, people do that, or anything even more important. But if you can do something that will convince the GM to give you a bonus for whatever you're doing, and you could come up with all kinds of things, and the bonuses, depending on the game, could be, if D&D, you can gain an advantage if you come from the person from a different angle, or get the higher ground, or something similar to that.
Horrible, Saul. Horrible.
It's my best Scottish accent.
Oh, God, please stop.
I said my best, not the best.
Or you can step behind.
There's a multitude.
There's all kinds of
all kinds of things, actions your character could take to change up the situation.
Interestingly, when I was reading about this, there was a guy talking about Powered by the Apocalypse.
Oh, ooh,
and he said,
yes.
And he made a comment about how when you're role playing the game versus D&D, and I thought I went, whoa, but the idea,
that's a little harsh.
That's what I said. Whoa, it's different, and that just is going to depend on the GM, right? So you can go into combat in a couple of different ways, where metaphorically or literally you pull out a battle mat and you set up the miniatures, and that's going to show that it's a simulation for the combat, right?
More simulationist.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you're not role playing, and that's not with the rolling the dice, but actually engaged in the game, telling people what's going to happen and what you're doing. I always think of feng shui as In Feng Shui, you have to roll to hit, but you also have to tell what you're going to do, and you need to make it very dramatic, because that might even give you extra points with the GM, right? Because I'm going to run up on the wall and do a backflip as I try to chop this man in half.
Right, right.
Versus I'm going to roll to see if I can hit him with my sword, right?
Yeah. Describing what you do, and even if it's a failure, it makes it exciting, right?
And that's what the guy that I was reading about Powered by the Apocalypse was talking about. You use the role-playing aspect, and then he goes into the fact that when it comes to whatever you're telling them you're going to do, this may trigger where you need to roll a dice to see if you are successful or not, right. Which is a roll to hit, okay?
Right. Well, in Powered by the Apocalypse, I believe, I've never owned...
You do? Oh, no that's not.
I'm sure I have a couple Powered by the Apocalypse games, but I've never really looked at the rules. I never owned Powered by the Apocalypse, and their idea is the whole idea of ROLE playing instead of ROLL. So I think in almost any Powered by the Apocalypse game, if you roll, you can make it if you take a consequence, right? Right, roll succeed with a consequence, or succeed amazingly. And I think if you don't make your thresholds, but see, it's a gradation, right? So as far as I remember, it's been a year since I played the original one. If you roll 2 6-sided dice, and let's say you need a 7, depending on what rule set, what game you're playing, you need a 7 to succeed. If you make it a 5 or a 6, you can succeed, but you take a consequence. So something bad will happen to your character, but you're going to do what you set out to do. Now, that's on every skill roll, not just combat, I believe. So they treat it almost the same as almost anything else that you can try to do. So there's that. And the Powered by Apocalypse has been around for at least 15 years. So there's that answer to the to hit roll, right? They kind of make it easier to succeed no matter what. But in this case, they're just eliminated to hit roll because they feel, well, those things I listed, that It's boring, it slows down combat and stuff like that. But you're right. I think people who take it in a more imaginative tact on combat can make it more exciting. And even if you do miss, the misses can be exciting. The misses can tell a story. But that's for the other part. What's the problems with?
Oh, he's pointing at his paper, telling me I went past what I was.
No, I did. So those are the ideas. Those are the ideas I listed. 1, 2, 3. 1, combat takes a lot of time. Doing this reduces the amount of dice rolling, then reduces the amount of time it takes for combat. 2, missing is boring. Take that for whatever you like, because they actually said that in their writings and in videos too. I think that they said that. And 3, eliminates the feeling of uselessness and not being effective in combat. So what's the problem with that? With this idea?
Can I tell you my first problem with it?
Go ahead.
So if you hit every time, if you don't roll to hit, it might speed up the combat, but does that mean that the bad guys don't have to roll to hit either?
I'm guessing, yeah.
Well, I was thinking that you're just going to beat them down faster. Like, it's going to make it go faster. I don't know if that's more or less boring. If there's not a chance if there's always a chance that you're going to miss, it makes it more exciting, right?
I think their idea is when you attack, because it doesn't matter because you're always going to hit, it's the damage, right? And then you are creative in the sense that what are you going to do to make your hit harder, do more damage. And supposedly from from what I've read and seen in videos, this was a long time ago when they first kickstarted this game. Matt Colville, you're right, that's the guy's name. They talked about how it made the players work together to do more damage, right? Imagine like a superhero, this is a different genre, but the superhero idea of I'm going to grab the dwarf and toss him at wherever he needs to go, and then that gives him extra oomph behind him stabbing somebody with a spear or something.
Always ask the dwarf if you can toss him before you do it. That's all I gotta say.
So that is something that you do in the game. Supposedly, it helps the players work together more.
I read that early on, or not early on, but I read that Buffy the Vampire Slayer and a couple other games started doing it where the GM doesn't have to roll to hit for the monsters, where the monsters get to just act. There's no roll. And when we played Dragonbane, there were certain that monster that swallowed you didn't have to roll to do anything.
Right.
It was just their action. Felipe rolled on a table and this is what he did.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, correct.
And so I was thinking, well, maybe that's where this idea comes from, that to speed up, and I don't think it was to speed up the combat. I was just thinking that it was more that the creature that the GM is you're up against doesn't have to roll because it's so big and bad that it's just going to do it.
Correct. I think these little automatic hit or automatic attacks, one, I equated to that idea or that event that happens. Say, for example, I remember, I've used this example quite a bit. The Happy Jacks podcast, the main guy, he was talking about, he had this wizard and the enemy for the player characters, and he was the big bad. He was the guy that was at the end of the adventure, right? Or even the campaign or whatever. But at one point, they finally confront him, and he does a soliloquy, right? I am no mere hedge wizard or something. Whatever, I think what Gandalf says or something. Anyway, I am no mere hedge wizard. And then the party gets to act because he spent his action talking, and they all just like, just the classic, they all maximize their damage and they take out the wizard in one shot.
Before he got to do anything?
Right? So imagine stuff like that happening. And I think the creators of Dragon Age had this in mind, that when you confront a monster that is literally famous for doing things, right?
Right.
And let's say the characters get super lucky and the monster never gets to do that. Why does that monster need to hit? It should just be able to do it. Now, that monster was like a big monster. It's stuff like orcs or goblins or kobolds and stuff like that. They don't have those kind of legendary attacks. They just have to roll to hit you just like everything else. And it wasn't even beneficial for him to swallow me because it made him more vulnerable, right? In a certain sense. But it was just shocking to the group, right? And it was like everybody goes, oh my God, he's going to die. So they try to attack. And so I think that is why that kind of action takes place in Dragon Age. Dragonbane, sorry. And I thought it was really, I thought I was SOL, right? Totally out of luck. And then, and everybody else thought the same thing, right? And I think that's pretty cool. When especially you don't expect things and you haven't read the monster manual and going, oh, this is what this guy can do. When you roll that table and you don't know what the results are. And I even asked, I don't get a roll to save. Or he goes, my brother did his due diligence, checked again for me.
Always does.
He goes, nope. He goes, nope. I go, okay.
Okay.
I guess you guys are going to have to help me. Exactly. That's kind of an exciting thing to do.
That adds an aspect to combat, right? Or to whatever's going on.
Yeah.
That the monster doesn't have to roll to hit. But as players, if you don't have to roll to hit, I think it might make it less exciting for you in a way that, oh, sure, you each get a turn, but is there even an option that you're going to miss? Because in role-playing games, sometimes those are the most fun or most memorable things when you do miss.
Right. Yeah, it can be part of a big deal in a combat, especially if, it's that that the monster's pretty low on hit points, or it's just maybe it's retreating or trying to retreat at some point, and you're like, oh, blocking it in and stuff. And everybody's low on hit points. Everybody's can be wiped out with any kind of hit by the monster. So there's that desperate attack by one of the player characters, and a lot depends on whether they make a hit or not. And I think you might or may not eliminate that kind of excitement out of the game, where one hit could be crucial. And I think they say, well, we have the same thing. I'm guessing what their answer to that would be. We have the same thing, but we're trying to make it so that the players combine their talents better in order to make more damage, to have a combined victory instead of this one person doing this combat or this attack and doing it by themselves. So I do have a list of problems with the system. I don't know where this one fits. What would you say? You're talking about missing being a good role-playing event.
Yeah.
And it could tell a different kind of story, right? If you miss at a crucial moment and then something else happens, and then...
Well, all I have to say is that Mike is still telling me that I tried to burn him alive.
Oh, yes.
And that was because I missed on my roll. So the fire that I was trying to stop actually hit him and burned him.
And that only happened because you messed up on your 2-hit roll.
Yes. So
it does eliminate those kind of accidents.
Yes, but he loves telling me that I've tried to burn him up.
Of course. And it's hilarious. And it's something that happens only due to the chaos of combat.
Right.
I agree.
So you take those bizarre moments away where you miss, but something does happen. It's not like you didn't take your turn. It's just it didn't go the way you wanted it to.
Yeah, it's the classic D&D game where you are shooting an arrow at a monster who you may or may not be in combat with one of your fellow player characters, and you miss, and like the DM goes, "Well, roll hit your player character, your fellow player," and they're like, "Oh," and the other player character goes, "You better not hit me." And whether they do or not, that's another thing, right? That's something that would occur and may not occur ever in this kind of system. So, Mike, you mentioned Mike. I think Mike would say, you're coddling the player.
Oh, yeah.
You're just letting them have their cake and eat it too, right? Whatever euphemism you want to use. But
by coddling the player, he means, well, I know you all understand what coddling the player means.
Maybe not.
But the idea, he would go, well, the idea that you're not going to miss ever is coddling the player. That you're giving into that idea that they are bored if they don't hit, and you must keep them from being bored.
Yes. They're not adult enough or capable enough to deal with a couple minutes of...
I think that takes away from the player, right? The player knows that sometimes you don't make it, and well, I guess it depends on how long you've been playing, but...
Okay, I have a couple of things that people talked about, and I came up with some overpowered characters. If you hit all the time, you may consider the player characters overpowered. And then you mentioned boring. Is hitting every time boring instead of the other way around?
Well, I know, like for Augustine and Alan, when they were mini-maxing and we were playing 5th edition or even Pathfinder or something, they could go in, they would do hits that took 90 hit points away from something. And I may never actually get to hit it, but it wasn't boring because they were like, they went in and they took care of the problem.
Exactly.
And they were having so much fun that it made it exciting, right?
Right. Part of learning comes from failures. Now, this is a real life thing, right? But think about it. What does your character learn from failing in combat? Oh, maybe they don't really like this weapon, or maybe they should change things up a bit. I mean, I know this, again, kind of falls in under the superstitious idea of role-playing, but just changing tact, changing weapons, maybe gain a different... advantages or disadvantage, or coming up with something that will work in your mind. I think you're eliminating that just because you automatically know you're going to hit.
Well, and also, I think that brings to mind the fact that in Conan, even if you hit, you have to roll on a table to see where you hit.
Of course.
Right. And that makes it interesting because, like, when the GM is rolling on where the bad guys are hitting you, everybody in our party is going, I should have bought that. I should be wearing a helmet because I have no armor on my head, right?
Or certain parts of your body.
Right. And you're like, depending on what you have, what kind of armor you have, it's going to negate the damage that you're going to take.
That's funny because like we were, you're right, because I wanted to hit people like in the torso and neck or whatever, even the head.
Because you were shooting arrows.
I was shooting arrows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just shooting them in the arms and stuff. But because the armor didn't cover they just had like the body, their arms and legs were not. My damage was extra effective because they didn't have armor in those spots. Actually, it was actually better that I hit them in those spots than if I hit them in the torso where were wearing armor, because armor reduces damage, and that game is all about damage. So, yeah.
Well, there's certain aspects. I mean, you could reduce or eliminate the to hit roll, but would that make it more exciting or less exciting? Because in Conan, even if you don't hit, it's still exciting. And if you do hit, it's even, you got to figure out where you hit, right? And I mean, there's all games are different,
Right?
But I think it just makes it less exciting,
Right. Okay. And then the fifth one kind of is the same thing about learning from your failures, but eliminate stories, especially which may stem from not succeeding, from not hitting.
Yeah.
And it extends they might extend the combat, which like everybody's like, oh, and at the same time it keeps the excitement going because like, okay, we still got to take care of this thing. The big barbarian who has the most muscles didn't make contact, so it's up to the hobbit thief and the wizard who's out of spells and only has a staff, or dagger. What's going to happen? So I think you're eliminating those kind of stories about missing, about not being successful in your attack.
And I think that some of those, like I told you, some of those stories are people razz each other for a long time. Like,
yes.
Like when I hit Mike with fire, he still talks about it. And
yeah, he does. It's been months since we played that game, and he'll text about being lit on fire.
Yes.
And we may not even be talking about role playing games. About you could always just put Mike on fire, accidentally, puts in quotes. So you're right. Those kind of things happen when you roll to hit and miss.
Yeah, like if you make a dramatic miss or when you hit roll a 1,
A critical failure.
Then usually the GM tells you what is it that happens, or you can figure out your own not punishment, but your own consequences of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
As you drop your sword, tell me what happens.
So I think when you eliminate those kind of events from happening, you're eliminating certain stories from being told or even being able to happen. And I think that may or may not be something that you want out of a game. If you're hitting all the time, I think one of the big reasons is that it causes people who are not rolling to hit, or when it's not their action, to think of other players. Supposedly, this in the play testing of these games, players were more interacting with each other as far as making attacks so that their attacks would deal more damage. So even though it was Peggy's turn to act, she was looking at Martin and James for not help, but to interact with her attack. Therefore, her attack would do more damage and stuff like that. So maybe that's an idea, but I think if you play long enough with people, that naturally will happen. People will start looking at each other for either help or ideas on how to better attack a monster and all these other things. And I think by eliminating the to-hit roll, you're eliminating the idea that failure is a story that can be told and can be exciting. Just for every exciting tale we have when we hit, there are probably 2 times that number of maybe not exciting for you who took the consequences, but everybody else remembers those stories.
Those are the memorable events
missed,
when you missed.
Or didn't quite succeed.
But I can see, and if you play enough different kinds of systems or different kinds of role-playing games, different mechanics, you get an idea of all the different kinds of ways that things work, right? So this might be fun for people. I can see that some groups might like to hit all the time and not have to worry about it.
Right.
But I can also see the drawbacks of that from other games, right?
Right.
So I guess it just depends on what kind of game you want to play. I mean, some of the things that we talked about, that it eliminates that kind of missing to give you a chance for role playing there. They would say, well, this gives you a chance to role play without having to worry about whether that you're going to know that you're going to hit.
Right. No, I agree. I think it could be cool, but I don't think that that would be my preferred way of playing a game. But I haven't tried it, so maybe.
Well, someone might run a game for you like that then, and you can see. I won't be the one doing it because I would have to learn a whole new.
Well, I'll probably go to a convention if they offer these games sooner or later. I haven't seen them prop up, so a lot of people wait till the books come out. I tend to, if I Kickstarter something and they give you the rules in a Kickstarter, I will run that game. In fact, that's what I've done for Tales of the Old West and Cohorts Cthulhu.
Well, there you go. So, I don't know. It's an interesting idea.
It's an interesting idea, and I'm not sure I would be totally keen on playing that style for a long time. I wouldn't mind trying that game, and I understand that when you take to hit off the table, there's other things you can think of as a player. That part does make sense, but I don't mind failing every once in a while. I understand everybody wants to try to be successful all the time, but sometimes you have to fall and get up again.
There you go. Good luck. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
And you have a good day.